first 20 minutes of this movie is an impenetrable bourgeois Midlands English accent. Two hitmen and their wives in a hot tub. And then one of the girlfriends goes in the bathroom, takes down a mirror, and draws something on the back of it. You think she's going to do cocaine. She draws something on the back of it. And then the guys go to a Crown Plaza somewhere in central England, and in one of the conference rooms, they meet a guy, and they get their money, and they get their list, and they're going to do their last hit. They're going to retire and sit in the hot tub and get fat. But just before they leave the room, the guy that hires them cuts his hand with a funny-looking knife. And then he cuts the hand of one of the hitmen. The man that hired them keeps the knife. We see that it's kind of antique looking. And then they go off to do the hit list. And it gets sicker and more radical and more crazy. By the end of the movie, it's Wicker Man 3000. I had to turn away 3 times in this movie. And I have talked to fans in the last 6 weeks, and I've met 3 people in the whole world that have seen it besides me, and one of them is my wife. People should be talking about this movie. Okay, next question.
Right here.
I didn't see it, but I'm a huge fan of Bill Moss's.
Okay, back point.
No disrespect to you, but what was up with Slash Dreams or Sunburst? That movie was just absolutely horrible.
I made that movie in 1972. Cut me some slack, Dad. Dude, I got poison nettles going in the moisture towards my crack on that one. No kidding. Yeah, I don't, you know, all I remember was they said James Keach was going to be in it. And back in those days, James Keach, like his brother Stacy, was a serious rock and roll actor. I don't know if you guys saw Long Riders, but that's a great example of how good James Keach was. Now he married, you know, Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. And he produced, what did he produce, you guys? With Hilary Swank. What? Speak young now. What did he produce with Hilary Swank, her best performance? Boys Don't Cry. Okay, so this is who I was going to work with. So that's why I did the movie. I had no idea it was going to be like a low-budget hippy-dippy movie. All I remember was I had to swim out in this lake with this beautiful Playboy bunny, you know, and James Keach naked in this lake. And we went back to the motel, and I'd walk through these reeds, and there were poison nettles on the reeds. And in the middle of the night, I woke up, and there was some rash heading for my... and the hippie said, well, what you want to do is take a hot shower, scrub that area. And then the straight people said, no, burn your clothes, burn the sheets, and take cold baths. Well, but, you know, I thought it was going to be the end of the world. I mean, I thought this was it. I had the map of Africa heading up my butt. And I finally went to a clinic, a hippie-free clinic in Mill Valley, California, and the Indian doctor, you know, the Deepak Chopra guy, said to me, he gave me cortisone shots. And I looked at my leg, and the rash went away like one of those old-fashioned Walt Disney nature films, you know, that time-lapse photography. The guy saved my life, you know, so there you go. Cortisone. Breakfast of Champions.
Question over here to the right.
I only have one question. I've been trying to meet you all day with no luck. Is there any possibility to slap my shoulder?
No, Dave's having none of that. Next question.
Okay, right here.
I think it's kind of a wrap on my participation in those films. I had a good run, you guys, and I'm really happy with it, you know. And Tuesday and I are here, you know, because of your love and because of the fans. and it will live, and they hold their own as a kind of unique little box set of books. You know, it could be Nancy Drew or the Hardy Boys, you know, in 100 years. It could be the Freddy Krueger, whatever the new laser DVD super disc thing is going to be on somebody's car phone, you know. But they have a kind of fairy tale, storybook, horror cautionary tale to them that holds up. I could do one more Nightmare on Elm Street. But the people that own it now, Warner Brothers and Platinum Dunes, they want to reboot the franchise for a younger generation. I can't do a fight scene 3 years from now. I can do a fight scene tonight. You know, I couldn't get out of bed tomorrow to sign autographs either. Be like a Monday morning, you know, football player. I couldn't get out of bed. You know, and that's the problem. Is you have to be, you know, Jackie, God love him, Jackie's a wiry little guy, he's in his early 40s. Yeah, and they can still beat Jackie up for a couple of years. You know, with me, it would be, I don't know, Freddy versus Viagra.
Right here.
It's a recent film that you just did. What was your opinion on a good date for it?
What? Well, listen, you guys, we're all fans here. You know, Dave's a fan, and I've always wanted to work with my friend Lance Hendrickson. And I got to be in Lance's gang in that movie. I got to hit my marks for a week with Hal Holbrook, who had just been nominated for an Oscar for the movie he did, Into the Wild. And so and then I got to grab Kathy Baker's ass, and I got to drink every night, you know, with Robert Patrick, the Terminator. Yeah. Snowed in. How close was I to here? If it hadn't been snowed in, I would have invited Dave. I was in the Poconos. We couldn't get out. The only person that got out was me and Samantha Mathis. She was doing a play with Jane Fonda on Broadway. She knew a back road into New Jersey. And I made a guy drive me to the airport just before the last snow hit. And on the page, that script, written by a very talented local person, on the page, it was like a little Sam Peckinpah movie. It was like a little gentle, slow Straw Dogs. And that's why I did the film. It was difficult to edit because all of the stories are coming together at the diner. You know, the ex-wife, the ex-con, the bad guys, it's all, the cop, they're all coming together at this one diner. And it was hard to cut, and I think it needs another cut, perhaps. But it looks real good on television. You know, it looks real good late at night, you guys, with a beer on TV, because you know, I think there's a new thing happening with good television, especially cable, where you kind of like it a little slower. You know, like you like that long story, Boardwalk Empire. Are you guys watching William Forsythe cut heads off? Come on, that's some good stuff. There's just some great stuff on cable, besides Dexter, which we all love. Boardwalk Empire, which is nasty, you know. Yeah, and so some of these films that have slipped through the cracks from Sundance, some of the horror movies, I just saw, and it worked for me. I'd had 2 cups of coffee, and my last cup of coffee, I had a shot of Irish whiskey in it. I was eating half of a tuna melt, and I watched, and I'll tell you, it's got some good stuff in it. It's, you know, we've got kids here from Blair Witch. I'm a big fan of The River. I saw this movie, Apollo 18. It's interesting. It's really interesting use of subjective camera. I like both those actors, and I like the idea, and maybe it's because I just read a book about this, I like the idea of sort of petrified stone crab aliens. You know, I like that idea. It's not horror. It's not really sci-fi, but I think it's an interesting hybrid that you have to give some credence to. You know, and you know, it took an hour and a half out of my life. More fun than the last Transformers movie. Okay. Wait a minute. I think Bumblebee just had anal with a Chevy pickup truck. Well, it's interesting because Tuesday could have done the other lead in that, and I, yeah, no, she could have, and at that time, I didn't know, about Tuesday's musical skills, and I was screen testing with Cynthia Nixon from Sex and the City, and Cynthia sings, and then Cynthia had a conflict and couldn't do it, and this beautiful young girl who had done 2 early 80s horror movies, Cutting Class with a guy named Brad Pitt, and another film with Keanu Reeves, and then she did what I consider a classic with our friend from Lost, The Stepfather, the original. Great film. Her name is Jill Schoen. So we set out, the director and I set out to do a Hammer film homage. And that's why we transposed Phantom of the Opera from the Paris Opera to the London Opera and made everybody, English. And if you watch it closely, you'll see me kill Bill Nighy from Pirates of the Caribbean in a Turkish bath. But everybody in that movie has incredible creds. One of the guys I kill is the original Che Guevara from Evita in London. The diva in that film, Stephanie Lawrence, I think her name is. She's also a great English Broadway musical star. And I'm proud of that movie because we set out to do a little Hammer film on our budget. I wish I'd have known, that because I could have brought in, I could have brought Tuesday in on it. I mean, what does Tuesday look like with her hair dyed black? I wonder. I think Christine has to have black hair. I'm trying to imagine, but it would have been fun.
Yeah, that's like a doll. It's like a creepy doll.
Phantom of the Opera is on my resume and in the sort of B-movie horror pantheon as a kind of retro revival of the horror of Hammer films. That's what we were going for. And it's a good cast, and it holds up on many levels.
Okay. Who else's question? Right here.
2 questions. How awkward was it in Strangeland in front of Snyder? And Tuesday night, are you still acting or is it?
Well, I've been doing a lot of music, a lot of soundtrack stuff now, but I'm definitely, looking for projects, and I have one I'm producing right now, so it'll be coming out like at the end of next year.
It's funny, because I see Tuesday's name on things, but I didn't know she did. And also, I gotta ask Dave this. He was supposed to be here, and he's not here, Ken Sagos, right? Was Ken invited? Or?
Not for this one.
Oh, okay, I'm confusing the website again. But I've been reading that Ken just sold a script. I think I just read that Ken was...
I know I know he's doing some projects for a charity. I didn't know there was a script.
I think something came alive. I think, because, how many Ken Sagos could there be?
Yeah.
And I just read it, in the trades recently, so you guys will have to ask him that when he comes in August?
Yeah.
Oh, August, yeah, okay. Yeah. And what was the question to me? I forget. Oh, Dee Snider. Well, Strangeland is really a good creepy movie. And I gotta tell you guys, there's a great sequel script. And we made that, for very little money. And that was the first time Dee was in front of the camera, so to speak. So Dee was writer, one of the producers, and the actor. So he was spread a little thin. I wish I could go back, and because I know Dee pretty well now, and just give him a couple of notes. Because he was working so hard, he was working around the clock. But you guys know Dee's real smart. I mean, real smart, you guys. And I went to meet Dee the first time, and all I knew was Twisted Sister, right? And I met Dee, and he's this really smart, articulate guy, and I'm in this sort of born-again community in Colorado where we shot the movie. And we're in this motel, and Dee's got these coffee table books, and it's like the entire history of tattooing and piercing, and ancient Indian, rite rituals where they hang you by your nipples, a man called Horse, Richard Haddock, John Huston, that's me being a movie guy. But no, really, all this great strange, wonderful stuff about pain and pleasure and ritual and piercing and how it bleeds now into goth and punk and various movements in contemporary culture. And, you know, Dee was he was like having a college class talking to him about that. And then the next night he took Nancy, my wife, and I out to this phenomenal restaurant outside of Denver, you know, for this gourmet meal, and he ordered like these elegant wines and everything. So there's like, you know, appearances are very deceiving. You know, the book by its cover thing. Not that there's anything wrong with being the lead singer of Twisted Sister, but people have all these other values and levels and hobbies that you just don't imagine. You know, I tell the story, you guys know Don Dokken and the soundtrack for Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4. Right, Dokken? And George still is a guitar hero, guitar god in Japan. You know, he still looks great. He's starting to look a little bit like Keith Richards now, but he's, you know, still a guitar god. And yet I went to visit them years ago, and Don, you know, answered the door in a kimono. There was classical music on, you know, and it's, you know, they're all artists in their own right. I love horror, and Wes Craven and Mark Hamill, and a lot of people told me that it was okay to like it and respect it, and help me remember the horror and the science fiction and the fantasy that I loved as a child. You know, I have a shrine now in my house, both to Forbidden Planet and to 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And it's because of coming to Dave's show that I have a great vintage Robbie the Robot, and it's because of doing a show in Europe that I have a great original 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea poster in Belgium, which is Jules Verne's, you know, natural language. And because I realized those were two of the most influential things on my life as a child. Those two films just blew my socks off. And Mark Hamill and Wes Craven taught me to respect it again and rediscover it and understand that it was okay. Now, I mean, you guys are of a generation that it's been okay for quite a while. And you know now how much respect you're getting with Comic-Con, conventions like this. Every month a great film or some film comes out that you want to see or go to. Great stuff on TV, whether or not it's for all of us. You know, you've got a Fringe, or you've got Once Upon a Time, or you've got The River, or you've got or Dexter. There's something, you know, that we want to see that didn't exist before in prime time. And, you know, so, you know, that sort of like was a real gift that I got from those guys that helped me respect the genre and feel comfortable talking about some of the early influences. Because I was a big stuck-up snob for a long time. You know, I was only going to do art films, and no television, only theater, and stuff like that. And it took me a while to kind of, you know, embrace my fanboy.
Who else has a question? Right here.
Can you talk about your time on MPG and actually kiss at all during the filming?
Well, I know Gene Simmons for a long time. I did a movie that they ran out of money on with John Stamos. But they ran out of money on that. They still owe me money anyway. But and then I worked with Gene in another weird little Sundance film that we did up in Canada. So I think I worked with him another time. I worked with Gene several times. What was the other part of the question, sir? Kiss and... Oh, well, you know, Mad TV, first of all, I don't know if any of you guys are watching Key and Peele on comedy. Man, you know, oh, those guys are great. And, you know, Alex Bornstein from Mad TV is now one of the top producers, and she's the voice of the mom on Family Guy. You know, from Mad TV, yeah. And so I love those. I love all those people. Those are great, great people. And I've directed a couple of movies and had them in, you know, for roles in the movies I've directed. Yeah, I mean, that's probably, if you're into comedy and subversive comedy, that's probably a DVD collection you should get, is the Mad DVD collection. I had a great time doing that show. I could barely, you know, I did what do you call it? was it Jeopardy? I did kind of a fake Jeopardy game on that show, and it was me against monkeys. And I could barely keep a straight face. The actors were so funny. They're all just terrific people, really funny people. And it's weird because they're older now from when I did it. They're all like, 10 years older, 12 years older. And I see them all the time on all the top guest stars, on all the top comedy shows. But they all look different now. They're all playing 10, 12 years older. They're not kids anymore. So when you're watching some of the new comedy shows on NBC and stuff, you'll see a lot of those Mad TV repertory players playing supporting roles and guest stars. But they're older now. We're all getting older.
Over here? Yeah.
Curious about your experience working with Rennie Harlan.
What was it like working with Rennie? Well, I worked with Rennie twice. You guys, Ford Fairlane. Well, I know I know you New Jersey people love it. He's the Dice Man. But I replaced Billy Idol. On that film. No. Maybe Tuesday dated Billy. I don't know. I replaced Billy. Billy had a terrible motorcycle accident on his Harley, and he broke his hand really bad, and so they called me to replace him. So that's why I did that film for Rennie. When I first met Rennie Harlan, he was sleeping on a couch in Hollywood, and the second time I worked with Rennie, they would say rap at the end of the day, and Rennie would get in a red Ferrari brought to him by the Teamsters, drive off into the night, with his blonde Viking hair. But Rennie always liked me because Rennie believed in love, and he really did. He really believes in true love, and I had found Nancy by then, and Rennie knew I was happy. And I think he really wanted to find, the right partner for life. And, he, as we know, he was married to and divorced Gina Davis, the wonderful Gina Davis from Beetlejuice and Thelma and Louise. And that was unfortunate because they were, together they were like the most phenomenally beautiful couple you ever saw in your life. 6'4" each, They'd walk in a room and it was like, the only other person that ever walked in a room more powerful than those two that I've ever seen in my life was Sean Connery. You knew you were in the presence of beauty and greatness. But Rennie's back. He's working all the time now. And I think Rennie's a really good action director. But he did a great movie, a great underrated movie. It wasn't a big hit, but it's kind of around now on a minor cult level, The Long Kiss Goodnight, with Samuel Jackson. It's really a good contemporary noir, so check it out.
Okay, we're going to do a couple more questions right here.
I wish I could gossip about Johnny, and I wish I was hanging with Johnny, and I wish I was invited to Johnny's Island. I haven't seen him in so long, but I think Tuesday will know the place I'm talking about. I ran into Johnny in the late 90s. There's a little theater